Right, before we can jump into today's discussion, let's quickly have a look at some of the top stories that are making headlines within our local daily. A reason for you to grab the Sunday Standard newspaper. And of course, top of the story is one that we highlighted yesterday, top of our front page, where parents, teachers roped into fresh exam theft plot, which is on page 2. And of course, the one that we are running with, it's the latest on the National Cereals and Produce Board scandal that has seen billions of Kenyan shillings going to West. Agriculture Cabinet Secretary promises to name the big fish. He promises to name the big fish in the cereals board scam, which is going to happen tomorrow as investigations point to a possibility of Mexican and Ugandan maize, which has been passed off as local produce, which is on page 11. But let me quickly read for you what the Cabinet Secretary of Agriculture had to say, Mwangi Kionjuri, in a quote. I am dealing with big fish. We have enough evidence of the rot which has been going on in the board, and I will ensure that all those responsible for the 740 million Kenyan shillings scam are prosecuted. An overview of just some of the numbers that we believe are important. 3,200 Kenyan shillings is the amount which the National Cereals and Produce Board bought a 90 kg bag of maize. Traders purchased at about 90 Kenyan shillings bag in Uganda at 1,300 Kenyan shillings, meaning that those who were resold the commodity to the NCPP made a cool 1,900 in terms of profit per bag. But also 5,600 is the number of Kenya 90 kg, that is, bags that a farmer says that he supplies to the board, but the ministry reports tabled in Parliament indicate that he supplied more than 80,000 bags of 50 kgs. Those are just a few of the numbers. But let me bring your attention, and of course, when I'm taking you through the papers in just a few, I'll give you an idea of just some of those shocking numbers, but that's a bit later on, because on page 2 of our newspaper this morning, it's the alarm on fresh cheating plot as KCPE and KCSE exams beckon. Just to give you an idea of how this story is important, shocking revelations of examination cheating rings have hit secondary schools just months to start the test. It has emerged that some school heads are colliding with parents to collect money to buy national examination materials this year and expose them to students early. We've taken a big story of that, which is in page 2 of our Standard newspaper this morning, but also the story that we ran big with yesterday, an update of that story where teachers would have killed him. This is a parent who is saying the teachers would have killed his son. I am lucky that he's still alive. Corporal's punishment is something that has been outlawed here in Kenya, and yesterday we saw the doctors of Nyahururu County Referral Hospital attend to a class 1 pupil who was reportedly injured by teachers at the Kamkuji Primary School in the county on Friday. The boy had sustained serious injuries in his private parts. Also, let's head over to another page. It is page 10 within the newspaper, one which I had earlier hinted about, and saluting. Now, the reason why page 10 and page 11 is so important within the Standard newspaper this morning is that we tell you some of those who have been prosecuted in the scandals that have mirrored Uhuru Kenyatta's government and those that are still not there. I'll give you an example. The Eurobond, which saw about 250 billion Kenyan shillings just walk out. Well, the status of that specific report, executive insists that no money was lost till today, and no one has been found guilty of that specific one. That's within the Eurobond scheme. The NYS, the very first NYS scandal that saw 1.5 billion Kenyan shillings just walk out. Status is still unknown. Kenyans still do not know where that money has gone to. Capability of it, none, zero. The second NYS, about 9 billion Kenyan shillings that has also been found. Probe is on, but the PS says that no money was lost. Of course, anyone capable is at zero, but investigations are going on. The Ministry of Health, one of the biggest schemes to hit it, where 5 billion Kenyan shillings just went like that. Status till today is still unknown. The Youth Fund, where 80 million Kenyan shillings has also disappeared. Investigations with that one is currently ongoing. IEBC, 50 million investigations still ongoing, where no one has been found capable of it. The Kenya Pipeline Company, where 647 million Kenyan shillings. The officials are currently facing graft allegations over the award of the tender. Investigations are currently ongoing. The Kenya Power Company, where 10.1 billion Kenyan shillings was lost. The irregular backdating of bills amounting to about 10 billion Kenyan shillings and subcontracting services provision to companies affiliated to the company belonging to KPLC. Again, for that one, investigations are still ongoing. 800 million with the NHIF, investigations are still ongoing. And SSF, 11 billion, investigations are still ongoing. JKIA, which has not been spared, 55 billion Kenyan shillings, where the tender of the airport expansion works irregular have been awarded. Investigations are still ongoing. So just paid for you an image, which is on page 10 and 11 of our newspaper this morning, that despite the graft that is eating Uhuru Kenyatta's government, no one has been arrested, no one has been found capable, from the Eurobond that saw 250 billion Kenyan shillings walk out to the recent NCPP, which investigations are ongoing, and the second NYS. So details of that are on page 10 and page 11, a full layout page in regards to that. And of course, what I told you earlier, Mwangi Kionjuri, who the Cabinet Secretary of Agriculture, saying that they delivered less bugs, and farmers saying that he's yet to name big fish and he's serious about taking them down. So details on that story are there. To another story that will also catch your attention within the Saturday Standard, with the Sunday Standard rather, this morning, is how children, the disabled traffic drug aboard. It says, in a quote, is a very interesting story. Every day, hundreds of children throng the no man's land between Uganda and Kenya to push disabled people ferrying goods across the border. It's an interesting story that highlights what's happening between the Kenyan and Ugandan borders. I'll just read a snippet for you. A young man sits inside a dark abandoned stall in Busia's Sophia Market, one of the busiest centers that we have in the county. His old sisal hat obscure his face, covering his eyes almost completely. He is engrossed on his phone, typing furiously and occasionally raising his head to sip on a bottle of cheap liquor placed delicately on his old chair. This is a great features desk, or rather feature story, that paints for you the challenges that how children who are disabled between the Kenyan border and Uganda border have to go through every day just to ferry their goods between both countries. And page 6, how the farm disposed state agencies of land worth 1.6 billion Kenyan shillings. This is with a private developer who acquired the title of the land, arguing that the NCPD was not ready to develop it. Yet another story that I probably will catch your attention. And how Cuban doctors are not overpaid. We have the Cabinet Secretary of Health defending herself there, Cecilia Kariuki, who dismissed that the Cuban doctors coming into Kenya will not be overpaid, and described those opposed to the scheme as not a crucial set of for the people. So we both know that the Ministry of Health is bringing in doctors from Cuba, which has raised eyebrows within the health sector as well as Kenyans, saying that if there's an issue, why are we not employing our own doctors here in the country, who still a number are unemployed? And in regards to paying our doctors, why would we be paying foreign doctors more than those of our local doctors? And of course, we have an excellent overview of how the week has been. So on page 19 of the newspaper this morning, Weekend Review, we have all the top stories that we believe are important this week that just passed by, and as we enter into a new week. And of course, Raila breaks the silence of graft, saying that Uhuru must act firmly. You remember within the first NYS graft, Mr. Odinga was the first person to blow the whistle. We've seen him quiet over this second NYS graft. However, he has now come out to say that President Uhuru Kenyatta should act firmly when it comes to fighting corruption. President Kenyatta has said that he is firm on doing this. Of course, investigation reports on the NCPP board issue is currently on his desk, also DCI's desk. It's also a matter of time when we see names that of any people who are responsible of the graft that we're seeing within the board. Not once, not twice, it's been currently ongoing. All right, and also within the newspaper this morning, you also want to grab it, especially if you're keen with about the newspaper, with our local newspaper, which is the Next Generation. There's an adorable little girl there, which indicates for her what she wants to be when she grows up. But that's just an indication of what is going to be on the newspaper this morning. But also, if you are keen on health, I dare you to grab your newspaper this morning, because inside we have the 7 health facts that you need to know. I'll just pick one at random. Let's see, number 3. Why you should keep the phone away as you sleep. How many of us are guilty of that, where you have your electronics, be it an iPad, be it a phone, when you sleep? Well, listen to this. American health officials have warned the public that sleeping with phone within arm's length exposes one to cell radiation and health risks, while the link between cell phone radiation emission and cancer are not yet clear, yet cannot altogether be ignored. Studies also show the men who keep the cell phone near the crotch trend to have a weaker sperm. Those are quite interesting yet important details of why 7 health facts that you need to know. Grab your copy of the newspaper, the Standard newspaper this morning, because inside it, within our own, you'll get to see why those 7 health facts are indeed important. And of course, we tell you an interesting story of how a fall changed our son's life. That is the one of Brian Nyakundi, who at 13 years old was once a healthy, active boy. But a fall in class was led to a myriad of health problems, threatening to snuff out his vitality. His parents, George and Elizabeth, shared his story. Yet another one, a reason for you to grab a copy of the newspaper this morning. And of course, international stories are well highlighted, rather. We've seen the Korean leaders held their second summit, which is important. One important summit that the whole world is keeping an eye on is up between North Korea and President Donald Trump, which seems to be on and off, especially this week. But we will be seeing whether they will be holding that talk in the coming month. Also, in terms of international news, we have an interesting story. Do the American sanctions on Iran affect Kenya? How do they, and if they do, how will they affect us as a nation? All right, so I'll let you grab a copy of the Standard this morning, and you will get to go through some of the stories both locally and internationally. And as I've told you, the very top story that we are running with that is the Cabinet Secretary of Agriculture, Mwangi Kionjuri, who says that he is keen on making sure that the key numbers of the key people, rather, in this graft will be caught. And of course, the fresh story of parents and teachers, how they roped into fresh exams theft plot. A reason why you need to grab your copy this morning. When we come back from this short commercial break, you get to hear from a number of the young girls here in this specific school and Maria Soti Educational Center. And right now sitting with me, I have Jane Rotich, who is the head teacher, and Cynthia Rotich, who is the head girl. She's in Form 4. She says that her favorite subject is physics, and when she goes into university, she'd love to do engineering. That's just a taste of what we'll be discussing later on. And I have an entire group of girls that you get to hear from, their journeys, their success, their fears, and so much more. But all that is after we come back from this short commercial break, so stay with KTN News.